So how do we deal with equations when there is a variable on both sides of the equal sign? It'll look something like this, and we'll look at more complex examples, but you see the x on the left side of the equal sign, and you see the x also here on the right side. So it's the same variable, but it's popping up on either side. And this is what you do. Basically, you try to get all of your variables to one side. And if you remember earlier, we talked about the left side of the equation and the right side of the equation. It's my personal preference that by habit, I normally put all my equations on the left side of the equation. That way, when I'm done, the variable sitting there to the left side and it's nice and neat. You don't necessarily have to put it on the left side of the equation, but that's just kind of one of my preferences you'll see in these examples. So another thing we've talked about is when you see a variable with no number in front of it, no coefficient, we can just slide it right in there with a positive 1. And that's where we'll start. Um, do you remember how if we wanted to get rid of this minus 3, we would add 3, and then we would have to do it to the other side? You know, or if we wanted to get rid of this plus 9 right here, we would look in front of it and go, okay, minus 9, and then we would do the same to the other side, minus 9. Well, we're going to be doing the same thing with these variables. Look in front of the variable. What's the sign? If nothing there, it's positive, and then just put the opposite sign underneath it. So think of it like this, 1x minus 1x. And so that would let us be able to box that up, and it cancels out, and this 9 would drop down, and this equal sign would drop down. But just like we did before, what we do to the left side, we have to do to the right side. So since we minus 1x here, we're going to put minus 1x here. And just as a brief note, listen, I'm not going to put 1x underneath this 3 because this 3 doesn't have an x. So what we're trying to do with these variables is we're lining it up with the variable on the other side. And so 3x minus 1x is 2x. And this minus 3 we've not touched, so that just comes down just like that. We now have a two-step equation, and we just solve it like normal. Ran out of room there, so it's x equals 6. So the idea is get all the variables to one side of the equation. So if I've got an x sitting over here on the right side, I want to do the opposite of it to bring it over to the left side. Now, what you'll really see though is this scenario will play out where we've got an a on the left side of the equation here. Here's the equal sign, and here's another a over there. So one of the things we want to do is if you see a variable with no coefficient in front of it, I want you to go ahead and just add in the 1 right in front of it. Now, we're still going to basically go through and take care of parentheses first. So we'll do that, and then we'll talk about combining like terms before we get into this new stuff. So it's a lot of the old stuff first. Distribution. This negative 2a would come down, and since positive 3 times 1 is positive, we'll put a plus sign right there. And then all of this comes down as well. The next thing that we need to do is we need to combine. Now here's where you need to make sure you understand. This equal sign is like a boundary line. It separates the equation into two different parts. As we look on the left side, we go, is there anything that I can combine this negative 2a with? And we only look up to this side of the equal sign. So negative 2a plus 3a. So negative 2 plus 3a is 1a. Can I combine 1a with this 3 right here? No, so the minus 3 comes down. Now, the equal sign is still sitting here. We need to take a look at this 9. Can I combine the 9 with this 1a? Since they're on the same side of the equal sign over here, the right side of the equation, can I combine these two? No, because one has an a, the other does not, so they just fall down. Now, what we've done is that we've taken a big mess of an equation, and we've basically simplified it down to something like this, where we've got a variable on the left side and a variable on the right side. So do you see? That's all the work that we've done. We've done all that work just to get to this point. And this is where it gets a little bit new. Okay, so don't be scared. And we had a 1a there, so let me put the 1a there. How can I get this 1a over here gone? Well, since it's minus 1a, I'm going to add 1a, and they lock up, and it cancels. But because this is on the right side of the equation, I have to do the same to the left side of the equation, on the other side of this equal sign. And I definitely do not want to put that 1a underneath this 3 because this 3 does not have an a. I want to put it with the other term that has the a. So 1 plus 1 is 2, and they both have an a, so that comes for the ride. And this minus 3 is just sitting there with nothing to do, so it comes down, and the equal sign comes down, and this 9 comes down. And so now, with one little motion, we've got a two-step equation that we can solve. And a equals 6. Here we go. I've got two of these. First things first, let's make sure that any of our variables that don't have a coefficient in front of it, we put a 1 right there. So negative, well, let me just make a little note here. Parentheses first if you have any parentheses, and then you need to combine like terms. So we're going to distribute, and we got negative 4n. Negative 4 times negative 3 is positive 12. There's nothing else to distribute, nothing else to drop on that side of the equal sign, and we can't, well, nothing to distribute here, so we'll just pull this on down. So we've got number 1 taken care of. What about the second step? Is there anything to combine? Well, take a look at this. Does this negative 4n have anything to combine on this left side of the equal sign? No, this doesn't have an n, so they're just there for the ride. Normally I wouldn't recopy it, but I'm trying to make it neat for you. And this negative 6 cannot combine with this negative 7n because this has an n and this doesn't. So again, I wouldn't normally recopy this. It's just my brain scanning. Is there anything to combine? So we've handled parentheses, we've handled combining. Now, at this point, we're also going, well, do we have variables on both sides of the equal sign? Yes, and this is when I handle it, and only at this step. We can add plus 7n on this right side. Since it was minus 7n, we'll do plus 7n, and it locks up and cancels out. And we'll put this plus 7n underneath the other term that has an n. Negative 4 plus 7 is 3n. Everything else drops, and now we're down to a two-step equation. Be careful with this right here. Keep, change, change. Okay? And I know a lot of our examples are ending with 6, but at least this one's a negative. The very last one will get a different answer. And so let's take a look at this one. First off, do any of our variables, are they missing a coefficient? No, we're all good, so we don't have to put a 1 anywhere. Secondly, take a look at parentheses. Are there any parentheses? Right here. So all of this is going to be within the parentheses, okay, for distribution. Negative 6 times 7 is negative 42. Negative 6 times negative 7 is positive 42, and this has an x, so the x goes right here with it. The equal sign, the 38, and the minus 2x drops. Now, what people do in a hurry is they normally forget this negative 4x right here, this front term. So don't forget that front term that's lurking there, okay? Now, the second thing we need to do is we need to combine. Now, we're talking about combining on the same side of that equal sign. So I'm just going to draw a line straight down here with a highlighter, okay? So there it is. Here's the left side. Let's take a look at this. Is there anything to combine with this negative 4x? Not the negative 42, but this 42x that could combine. Negative 4 plus 42 is 38x. Is there anything this can combine with? Nope, there's nothing else on this left side of the equal sign, so it just drops. This is like a wall. Now, there's nothing to combine with this 38 because I can't combine it with that, so they just drop. And now at this point, and let me kind of scooch this part of the equation over. At this point, the only way that you can get rid of this minus 2x on this side is to add 2x. That's the only thing that'll do it. So, again, we look in front of it and we would just say, hey, plus 2x. The whole reason that I chose to do this is I would like the x to go away on this side. But there's a price to pay. If I add 2x on this right side, I have to add 2x on this left side of the equation. Everything else that's not involved in that plus 2x just falls. And now we've got the two-step equation set up for us. That's pretty much it. Now, how would I check it? Well, any place that you see any place that you see an x, will actually go and insert a 2. So in your calculator, you would say, hey, -4 times 2 minus 6, open parentheses, 7 minus 7 times 2. So again, any place that you saw an x, you would replace it with a 2. Make sure that it's actually doing the mathematical operations it's supposed to do. If it's sitting next to a coefficient, it is supposed to multiply it. Now, we hit enter, and we figure out what the answer is, and we'll do that in a second. Over here, because it's got a variable on this side, we say, hey, what's 38 minus 2 times 2? And, whatever this side comes out to be in your calculator, you get an answer, and you see if these two answers are the same, because these two sides are supposed to be equal to each other. And I just took a moment to type it in the calculator. The left side equaled 34 and the right side equaled 34. So since these two sides equaled each other, we know that 2 is the right answer indeed. And again, that's just what you do to check these equations where the variables are on both sides of that equal sign.